Welcome to RGBA, Colorful Tech News and Reviews. This is episode 79. My name is Alexandre Vallière-Lagacé, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tyler Ménard. All right, it's been a couple weeks already. Time flies, man. Since we did any shows, and now we are back into our regular schedule. So a couple of things happened over the last couple of weeks. Mainly, Apple posted some financial results. We also had the story of the iPhone 10 being canceled. This is a fun one. And the HomePod reviews came out, the initial reviews, and even the more detailed reviews on YouTube. So we're just going to cover a couple of things like that. So on the financial side, I'm going to spare you all of the details of all the financial things. I only noted like a couple of facts that were pretty interesting to me. The first one is I was expecting the iPhone to ship more iPhone 8s than iPhone 10 just because it's more affordable. But in the end, the average selling price increased. So that was pretty impressive. So this means that a lot iPhone 10s were sold. We cannot mathematically guess exactly what's the percentage, but there was quite enough units that were sold of the iPhone 10s that it affected the average selling price quite a lot. So so that was great. There's also an active device base of 1.3 billion. So that's pretty impressive. And consider that 2 years ago, it was 1 billion. So in 2 years, we have 300 million more devices that are active. So it's not people who actually replace their old phone with a new phone and just trash the old one. It's actually active devices. So that's pretty great. It also means that the lifespan of a device is increasing. So iPhones are probably lasting about 3.5 to 4 years, and the iPad is about a 5-year run. So both numbers are great for consumers, meaning that the devices are fast enough that they can last a couple of years. And the iPad, this long lost device that people keep saying that it's doomed, it's not selling, it's dying, whatever, has basically brought in $6 billion just in the holiday quarter. So just this number, 6 billion, this would be an amazing number for any company, any small company. So let alone if you compare it to other devices, if you compare it to the whole Surface division by Microsoft, which means tablets, PC convertibles, all of those devices together, they gave in just 1.3 billion in the holiday quarter, same quarters. So if you consider laptops and tablets, everything is still 4 times less than just the iPad itself, which is only a tablet. So I don't think we can say that this is dying or that this is not selling. They said it's also slightly over 13 million units. So that's pretty impressive also. Did you note anything special with the financial results on your side?
Not really. I don't follow them usually, really. It's always, Apple has made a lot of money and it made more money than year over year or something like that. The iPad sales, I don't think of it as a problem. I just say maybe people are holding on to iPads a lot longer than iPhones, and I think we already talked about that, and everybody talks about that. The iPad is more like a computer. You can tough it for a couple of years before it needing to be replaced. Like the iPhone is more consumable if you want, and people are more, they want to have the newest, greatest iPhone. And the iPad, just to surf the web, you don't need that much of a great device. That's a greatest, latest device.
Yeah, overall, it's pretty great. Like you said, it's if we know it's always going to be more units, more dollars. So that's why I try to understand exactly the small details that kind of are interesting. Like the average selling price, I was not expecting it to go so high. So it's pretty interesting. I think it was $796. So and I think that it should have been about 710. So it's almost $90 above. So this is a big number. which means that there was a big impact for the iPhone 10. So moving on to people saying that the iPhone 10 is canceled. So that's that kind of thing you heard.
I think who talked about this though. This quarter only includes, it's missing a week or something, and last year's holiday quarter was an extra week. So you have to take that into consideration.
There's a whole thing about the weeks, because usually a quarter is 13 weeks, but last year they were able to cram in, because of calendars, dates, and everything, like an extra week. So they had more units last year, and Apple didn't tell anyone about that. And it's some random blogger that realized that, of course, they were able to get their numbers because they have an extra week. And if you remove 1/14 of those numbers last year, Apple wouldn't been able to make up their numbers. So that's why they were able to reach their objectives. This time, they had one less week for the quarter. So I think the CFO told everyone in the call that about 15 times that they were missing a week. So all in all, if you make an average, I don't think it really matters. They still sell more units. They still have more money. The iPad situation is interesting because this year was great for the iPad. Got a lot of new devices. The iPhone keeps selling. It's still super high. Not as high as it was when the iPhone 6 Plus came out, because that was the year that two things happened. One, they had a big phone, and two, the iPhone launched in China. So just right off the bat, this was a couple million units extra every quarter. So that's why that year the number of units rose quite extensively. But since then, what else do you have to tackle? Like, there's the Indian market right now. So I'm not sure if Apple is officially there yet. I know that in the news there were lots of discussion eventually about like having the phones built in India, or else they were gonna charge like duties and taxes like that on imported device, which would like raise up the price substantially. So there was lots of discussion going there, but I'm not sure if it's actually launched right now and if they have Apple stores in India. But if they do, that's the latest big market to tackle. After that, the phone is available in all major markets worldwide, and they just need to have either people replace their phone or wait for new people to be old enough to buy an iPhone. So that's the only new numbers you can get. And this will not be like a 20% increase. It might vary by 5 and at most 10%, in my opinion, year over year. So it's not going to be any super spikes like we had before.
And also the iPhone 10 was on sale for only like 9 weeks out of 13 or something like that. It was missing, I think, a month or so. So you have to take that into consideration for the ASP and all that.
Yes, but at least they were able to ship all of those pre-orders. And if you go in the store, you can actually buy it. So it helps to get good numbers, even though, like you said, it's less weeks. Because there's always a big spike at the beginning when people are pre-ordering, and everyone who wants an iPhone 10 fast, they have it. So that helps to get that big jump in numbers. But then after that, if you're not able to provide units to people who are basically waiting for reviews, waiting for comments after a week or two, that's when, like for the AirPods, for example, like they were released. We saw the reviews. People wanted to buy them, but they could not. They had to wait a couple months to get them, like even all the way to the next year, like February, March, to start to get some units in stores. And it was like 4 or 5 units per store. It wasn't like they got like a whole crate. So yeah, it does have an impact for sure. 9 weeks out of 13, that's still have an impact. So yeah, about the iPhone 10 being canceled, I had this discussion yesterday. So with a family member, he was like, I'm happy Apple cancels the iPhone 10 because I don't like the size and the notch. And I'm like, dude, you're so technically like knowledgeable. Usually, why are you saying that? Like, why would Apple sell its flagship phone? Stop selling its flagship phone that actually sold so many units that it affected the average selling price. And I know this guy loves like all the shares in the market and everything. So I started to give him all the financial results so that he can understand like the impact. And he realized that maybe whatever he read wasn't so right. And I said, you know where that comes from? I'm pretty sure it's just supply A got like a smaller order for the coming months because Apple transferred the production to supplier B, which was either faster or more reliable parts. So that's why this part supplier basically got out and said, hey, Apple reduced our orders, so they're gonna like wind down the iPhone 10 because it's not selling anymore or something. So, and now he just understood everything, and I was able to remove this cloud of misjudgment from him. But yeah, it's crazy how this news actually got mainstreamed, and people even to this day still think that a device that sells millions of units, that is the new thing forward for Apple, will be canceled because it doesn't sell anymore and enough, or it's I don't know.
And everything needs to be like the iPhone. Like now we're going to talk about the HomePod, but the HomePod is going to be a flop because it's not selling as the iPhone. Like it's like everybody's waiting for the next iPhone. Everything has to be the next iPhone.
Yeah, the iPod, then the iPhone, then the iPad the first year or two. And I was like, what else can Apple do? Like they were hoping for the Apple Watch to sell in tens of millions of units. We never got actual numbers, probably because it's lower than what people are expecting, not lower than what Apple is expecting. I'm pretty sure right now I don't have the numbers, but because it gets all mixed up into other categories, the Apple Watch. But I'm pretty sure if you take just the Apple Watch business, like the iPad, and you would like spin it off as a separate company, any company executive would love to handle that company with the billions of dollars of revenues for a single product. It's still selling great. It's still a great product. It's probably like the only major model that matters on the market right now. So it's always a matter of comparison and expectations. Like if you're expecting Apple to come up with something else like the HomePod and sell 50 million units per quarter, well, it's not going to happen because first of all, it's not a $100 device like the iPod Nano or the iPod, the small iPods, I don't know, remember. There's the fatty one, there's the Nano, there's the Mini, yeah, the Mini. So that's when they started to sell like tens and tens of millions of units per quarter because they were cheap and people were rapidly buying them. But the HomePod at $349, it's not the same thing. And not everybody is on board with this Siri experiment, so that also makes a difference. But anyways, so the HomePod, we got a couple early reviews by usual suspects, and then we started to see YouTubers get their HomePods. And I don't know if you're like me, but I quickly saw a couple of them pop in my feed, and many of them were comparing Alexa with Amazon, with the Google, the big Google Max, and the HomePod, and those that are basically making like, here's some music on all devices play in their video. That sucks because what can you like show it? Your microphone's not gonna pick up the sound properly. So the only thing I could notice sound wise is that the bass on the HomePod seems to be rounder, like better represented, and not like has I don't know, not clipping as much as the other devices. But you don't get a feel until you have it in real life. But still, I think the consensus is pretty great. People love the HomePods, right?
I think so. That's pretty much it. Okay,
and did you saw like any features, missing features? Like one thing I don't really like is the cord is permanent. So if let's say your dog chew on the cable, then you have to go to the Apple store to get it replaced for $30. So at least there's an article for that. So Apple thought about it, but still, I don't think it would have killed anyone to just put like a regular cord there, so you can just yank it out and put a new one, or a longer one, or a shorter one, if for that matter, if you want.
When I saw like the connection or pictures of where it goes into the HomePod, I thought it was the kind of cable that you can like push in to make it shorter and pull out to make longer, like you have on vacuums and all that. Do you know what I mean?
That would be nice.
I thought that was the principle of it, but I guess not.
Yeah, that would have been nice because having a shorter cable sometimes makes a lot more sense, and sometimes a longer cable if your power is not where you want to put the HomePod. But once again, Apple presents this device as being able to adapt to any room or any situation. So if it's not perfectly centered in your living room, for example, the sound will still be great. So it's less of a problem for sound, but it might be a problem for aesthetics, depending on where you want to put that device in your house.
I've been growing through the whole new Apple product that I don't need, but now I kind of want, and then I'm going to have to buy cycle right now. And we don't have it here in Canada yet, but I'm going to the States next week. So I'm trying to like find somebody that says that it wants one so I can buy one for them. So then I can like hear it and just, it would be okay. I won't need one, but I can't find anybody. Nobody wants one.
Yeah, it's a special product. I also don't need it. And it looks nice, especially the black one. The white one, I'm not too sure because it's pretty jarring because I don't have much white in my house. But yeah, sound wise, it looks nice. I don't like Siri. It works fine. I mean, like she understands you so much better than on any mobile device. This is exactly what I was expecting because of an array of microphones. I think it has like 6 or 7 microphones all around it, so it hears you very well, even if the volume is at maximum. And you just shout, "Hey Siri," not too loud, in the same room. She can hear you, no problem. I haven't seen any long distance, well, not long distance, but like further away tests. So like people were all doing it like in the kitchen or across the living room, which is, of course, it's going to work. But what about like next room? Because that's one of the things that the Amazon Echo was quite good at, is hearing you across your house. So I'm not sure if the HomePod can hear you well. But other than that, it looks like an amazing product. I don't need it either. Do I want to test it? Sure. Will it change my mind? I don't think so. Just because, first, there's not that many HomePod HomeKit compatible devices. Apple is late to the game, and there's not enough also web services that work with the HomeKit setup. So if I were ever to go all in into smart devices, let's say I would like to equip my living room with a bunch of those devices, I'm pretty sure that without looking at which smart assistant is compatible with those devices, I'm going to end up with a couple of them that are not compatible with HomeKit. So I wouldn't be able to control my stuff with Siri. So I would lean more towards a Sonos One, which is going to be soon in Canada compatible with Amazon, and Google Home coming this year. So it's just for this is going to be much, much, much better for me. And also, okay, maybe the HomePod is better than the sound from the Play One, but is it that much better that I need to live with Siri? Not too sure. And also, in the States right now, where the HomePod is available, you can get 2 Sonos One for the price of 1 HomePod. So either I transform my home cinema to be a 5.1 by adding 2 satellites with 2 Sonos One, or I just add 1 more Sonos in my office and 1 more in my second floor, and I would have music across my house. So yeah, I'm not gonna buy one.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Even though I have like this, I was looking at my briefcases, and not my briefcases, I mean my luggage. And I have like a bigger one that could probably fit the box and everything. So I'm just saying, if you still want one, like please buy one.
Yeah, no, won't happen.
Yeah, I want one just for music. I don't really care for Siri. I use Siri and it works fine for what I use it for setting like a simple timer. Yes, I know it can only set 1 timer at a time and all that, but I don't normally need like potato timer and carrot timer. I just need 1 timer for what's in the oven or something. And then the other thing is I think that the HomePod won't have like software. It will only have software updates and not hardware updates. So even if you buy it now, I think it's going to last like a couple of years, and if there's new features, it's just going to come through software updates. So I don't think they're going to change the speaker technology or anything. So you won't be like wanting to upgrade. So that's why I say, let's just buy this one and use it for music now. And if it does more Siri stuff later, then good. But like, let's just buy it as a speaker right now. But I'm having troubles convincing my wife.
Yeah, I do understand that. About the hardware upgrade stuff, I'm also looking forward to know if this is going to be a new line of product for Apple, or if it's just going to be a one-off like the iPod iFi was 10 years ago. Because that would make a big difference in terms of adoption also. Because if you have only a single speaker and that is it, then it has limited appeal, because maybe you want something in your office that can play music in the background, but do not need like this super strong, super bassy music. So something that would be smaller, like maybe not like an Amazon Echo Puck, but something that's similar to that, maybe just a little bit bigger, could be very interesting also, and would allow Apple to have Siri across multiple devices and also multiple needs, and that could grow into its own line of products. Just like basically Sonos is doing with their Play 1, their Play 3, their Play 5, the Play Bar, the Play Bass, and the Sub. Like, you have a whole set of devices. And like you said, what I like about Sonos is that they have the same hardware they had almost since the beginning, which was 12 years ago. And if you have one of those very first Sonos Play 1 when it came out a couple of years ago, and you still have it today, you still get all the updates, you still get all the features. Like, for example, there's a feature where it adapts the sound to your room. So you basically take your iPhone out and the speaker is emitting a sound, and you're just painting your walls up and down, and you're just walking around your room. And using the microphone in your phone, it basically caps the reverb and the sound bouncing around. And because of that, it allows it to basically adapt the sound to your environment, and this makes a huge difference. So this is basically the same thing the HomePod does. Instead, the HomePod does it only when you move it around. So let's say you put your HomePod in a single place and you start playing music. It's going to do that in the first 10 seconds. It's going to calibrate the sound. And also, depending on the song, it's going to calibrate the sound. So it's super adaptive. And then if you ever move it around, there's an accelerometer inside that detects that there was movement. So the next time it starts to play, it's going to recalibrate itself. So it doesn't recalibrate for the room every time, but it recalibrates for song. So it adapts the bass and the highs and the lows and everything to have a better sound. But the reverb and everything, that listening to the room basically part, only is done when you move it around. So it's super smart by Apple. Once again, the hardware, I think, is going to be top notch, like nothing to complain, super quality, super good audio quality. So I don't think people can complain about that. And once again, it's just a software. Like you said, I don't use often multiple timers, but the one time you try, that's the one time you're pissed. And also, if you're listening to a couple of those demos online, I'll have a few links in the show notes. The way that Siri interacts with you, like, she's too chatty. She's tries to be funny sometimes, and it's like, just don't. Like, I don't want a relationship with my smart assistant. It's like that she or he or it, whatever, can tell me jokes. Just give me the information. Go straight to the point and do it. And one thing that I was surprised to see in some of those demos is that actually Amazon was able to get sometimes more information than even Google was. So right now, Amazon is getting better and better into search. Like, for example, they ask, what are the names of the moons of Neptune, I think. And Siri wasn't able to understand the query, so she barked, as I was expecting. Google was able to name a few. But then Amazon was able to tell you that there's actually many hundred moons, and the smallest one that we can consider a moon with such a radius is this name, and then there's a couple more. So it was super detailed and super quick to get you the right answer. So I was very impressed. So yeah, once again, software on the Apple device is what's to blame for the limitations. Of course, software being software can get updated over time. But as the product it is right now, it's sad that it gets limited. And also, no AirPlay 2 yet. So that's a big problem for me, I think.
But yeah, but that's my problem with the Sonos is there's no AirPlay, so I can't play with can't play podcasts on it from Overcast. Actually, only.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the limitation it has right now. And the way that it was explained, I'll put in the show notes a link to the podcast where the actual Sonos exec basically explains why. It just comes down to the experience. Like, they spent years perfecting the multi-room audio, and if they were just saying, hey, here's just do AirPlay to the speakers, then people would be expecting that the AirPlay would work on all speakers. But the technology in AirPlay doesn't allow that. There's a couple of seconds of delay, and there's no way to sync audio. So each speakers would need to listen to you, listen to the house, and try to sync the audio, which would never work because many times you have two rooms that are not connected, and the sound from one speaker is not heard from the other room. So it would just never work, and people would be pissed. So that's why they tried, like internally they did try to do it, and they were able to do it, but the multi-room was failing, and that's what was getting on people's nerve. Because let's say you're like in your basement, you start some music, you want to put music in your whole house, and then you just play the music. When you go upstairs, the same song is playing, but like a couple seconds delayed. And this just breaks the whole magic of the multi-room audio. So that's why they never really implemented it. But they said they'd already told everyone, like when they announced the Sonos One, that as soon as AirPlay 2 is available, because it has multi-room audio and zero delay, they're going to add it for sure. So you're going to get it like it's probably going to be there before June, I'm thinking. So last time they could basically announce it for next week would be like at WWDC. I don't see Apple shipping that later, and if they do, they really are messing up this year software release. That's pretty bad. Moving on to some news that is kind of funny in a way, is Apple is supposedly cracking down on emojis in app titles, app text, and different UI elements. Basically, you're not supposed to, according to the latest App Store guidelines for people getting their apps rejected, you're not supposed to use emojis in anything but a field where people can enter text. So let's say, for example, you have a to-do list app, and you want to add a new list, and you want to call it like, I don't know, like Apple emoji, beard guy, and then puking man. You can, because that's a text field that you can enter whatever text you want, and that could fit Apple guidelines. But as soon as you yourself, the developer, try to put like an emoji, like let's say for example in Overcast, where when you are when you give a tip to Overcast, and there's a little heart emoji there, and that's a red heart. So that would not be available, would not be allowed. And also any titles, any reactions. There's a bunch of to-do list app that once you go down to an empty list, they kind of like your inbox zero, they kind of want to encourage you, and they put like a little message and everything. And there's oftentimes many emojis. So that's one thing that would not be allowed. So I know that ATP said that it was still ongoing, so I'm not sure if it's being fixed or if Apple changed their mind or whatever, but still it's interesting to see. I don't agree with Apple's reaction there.
Yeah, there's a good show, what's his name, Jeremy Burge of Emojipedia. He was on Connected and talking about this, and while he was on the show, it was actually being like a revised or whatever. I think they were starting to contact a couple of developers and just say like, oh, sorry, this was a mistake. So I think that something went wrong, or like they applied a new rule, or they just said, hey, make sure to crack down on this rule, and it was wrongly applied or something like that. But apparently they're rolling back slowly.
Yeah, that would make sense. I hope that this gets resolved quick. Moving on to the Rumors Corner. Your favorite corner.
Yeah.
We did heard a couple of rumors in the past about glucose meters being added to the Apple Watch. But now what we have is probably one of the first NFC compatible glucose meter that is a third party creation and not an Apple creation. So this would be the first time that a third party software is allowed to use, not software, hardware is allowed to use the NFC reader in the iPhone. So in order to communicate your data via from your glucose meter to your iPhone app, then it's called the Libre. It's gonna be an app that's gonna be supposedly compatible with the core NFC framework. So it's gonna be able to scan the NFC data exchange format tags, and yeah, that's interesting. I'm all in for anything that can help people with the diabetes and sugar level problems. So that's nice. Hopefully it's going to come out soon. And one little interesting tidbit. Apple posted a support article on how Hey Siri works with multiple devices. So which device responds in what scenarios. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just go in the show notes and you'll see that there's about six points of how to basically detect the how this works, basically. So it's pretty interesting. It's a bunch of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and activity and whatever is being used. So it's pretty interesting.
I had problems with this recently. Every morning I ask like the weather to when I'm putting my socks on so I can gauge if I need a thicker shirt or not. Anyways, so and it was triggering the phone on the other side of the room, my girlfriend's phone that's plugged in. So instead of having it on my phone, like it was on the other side of the room, and then it wouldn't hear me or whatever. So I had to retrain my new iPhone. So I don't know how that works or why. Or maybe we have the same voice and the other iPhone thought I was my girlfriend. I don't know how that works. I was kind of disappointed. And now every time I say the magic key phrase thing, both the phones they light up. Like mine responds, but the other phone like the screen comes on, then it shuts off. So it's like, oh, do I have to help? Oh no, I don't have to help. Okay, I'm good. I don't know if they both get picked up, and then my iPhone says to the other iPhone, like, no, I got this. You go back to sleep or something like that.
Yeah, this Apple really needs. That's one place where the hardware in the iPhone is lacking. The microphones on the iPhone are just the small ones that you actually use when you talk to your phone. So it's not beamforming. It's not like super large array of microphones. So if Apple wants this to work well, they need to catch your voice properly. So they would need to add more microphones to the iPhone. And also, they need to do a better job of identifying who is speaking, because I'm pretty sure that basically what happens to you is that the iPhone was too far, and just hearing the trigger word mumbled across the room or whatever wasn't clear enough for it to understand exactly who was speaking. Because even though you trained it to see, when you say "Hey Siri" a couple times, when you're too far, the microphones are too cheap and they don't work well enough that they don't understand who you are. So the first step would be to have better microphones in the iPhone so that it works across the room, even maybe across part of the floor at your house, so that if your phone is in your kitchen and you're in your living room and it's a open space and you just say "Hey Siri" across the whole floor, she should be able to understand you properly. And that comes down to microphones. And then there's also the software part, where they need some kind of training and some kind of voice recognition to really understand who is speaking. And this should be done ASAP, because the HomePod, being a home device, basically should allow you to understand queries between different individuals and have multiple calendars or text messages and everything. All this should be able to be understood and properly routed, if you want, to the proper app, the proper channels correctly, which is not the case right now. It's still single user and everyone can send text using your HomePod. So it's still, once again, software related. They're still having troubles, especially for the HomePod. The microphones are great. So I just hope that this technology, this microphone array thing, finds its way into the iPhone somehow. I don't know where, I don't know how. You cannot add a couple holes all around your devices. So maybe, I don't know, replace the ones you have in the iPhone with something that is 10 times better, maybe cost a couple more pennies, but would make the whole world of a difference, especially in your situation where you have two iPhones in the room, then which one should light up, you know?
Yeah. And also, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. John Gruber was talking about this on a talk show. He has multiple Echo devices, and he says he has a lot of problem. Like he's in the kitchen, and it's going to trigger the one in the living room. So I think they have problems with the same thing of knowing which device is closest to you right now and which one to trigger. Because he says he sets timers in his kitchen, and then the timer goes off like in the living room because it was set on both echoes. So that's kind of funny too.
Yeah, I was hoping that this would be easy to resolve because I'm thinking that, okay, if you're in the kitchen and you ask a query, it shouldn't be picked up like in the other room because the microphone levels would be higher in the kitchen. So that's the one that should be triggered. But I'm thinking that it might not just be that. Over time, with the different echoes, they have different sensibilities of microphones. And maybe the microphone in the small pocket across the wall is better as catching like a higher sensibility, so it catches your voice better than the one that's just across the corner in your living room, for example. So that's might be why it's picking up. So yeah, it might be a more complex problem than I was at first expecting, but you're right, they should totally understand you properly, especially with Amazon, since they have so many devices now. You have the tall cylinder, the small cylinder, the puck. You have the show, the look, I don't know, everything, the alarm clock. So they're all there. So in a house that is Amazon friendly, it wouldn't be surprising to have maybe 3 devices, maybe even 4. So they really need to get this to work properly. But once again, software is hard.
Okay, so we're gonna introduce a new corner. I don't think we ever talked about it, but let's start now. So it's gonna be the space corner. Yeah, no, or you have to do the rocket launching sound. True. Whatever.
Yeah.
So this week, I think it was the first time I watched the SpaceX launch. How about you?
I usually go on the live stream and then it's so long to just actually start that I basically give up some time and come back later and I missed it. But this time I was just about 40 seconds late. So I was able to catch up in the past with YouTube Live. And then once I saw that everything was set up in between 2 steps, I was able to go back to the live stream. So yeah, it was the first one that I actually saw live.
It was the first one that made it into my tech bubble, if you want, because my tech news sphere, whatever you want to call it, my Twitter feed. So I watched the launch. It was pretty cool. It was the new Falcon Heavy, the first Falcon Heavy launch. So it's just the basic same like rockets that they usually, but bigger and heavy means they can bring more stuff in space. It was a test of multiple things. They wanted to bring back the rockets home, bring back the core home, and then they were setting stuff. They say Mars, but I think they're going like a little further than the moon, and that's it, or not even. I'm not sure. They say setting for Mars, but they're coming back soon, so I don't know how that works. I didn't really look into it.
What's coming back? The Roadster?
Yeah, no? Isn't it coming back?
No, I think it's just being launched going into the Mars direction, but I'm not sure it's going to reach the planet. It might just go, like, miss it by a couple billion miles and just continue in space forever.
Okay, I thought it was coming back and they were, like, setting course for Mars and then turning around or something like that.
I don't think it has power. I think it's just...
It's like, just there?
Yeah, it has the momentum. It's going to eventually reach Mars. But yeah, we spoiled the end. So one of the things that was in the rocket was some heavy payload, of course, just to fake a couple 100 tons of material. And also 2 things. There was a car, so a Tesla Roadster, new version, and also a spaceman, which is basically just a dummy with wearing the new spacesuit that SpaceX designed, sitting in the car with the Don't Panic on the screen. And this is the load that was basically propelled into space and shot directly to Mars. So this would be the first car that goes into space and the first car to go to reach Mars. I know, but that was the way they presented it. So
yeah,
I know that you and your favorite show on TV did something different.
No, I was talking about the lunar cruiser or whatever it was called. Wait, I'll get the name. So everybody's saying the first car in space, but they took a car to space and they actually drove on the moon. So, and is it the new Roadster? I thought it was the old Roadster, like the Lotus one, the Lotus-based one.
I thought it was a new one, but it could be the old one.
Is there any? Oh yeah, there is a new one in actual. It's not just a concept car. There's one that works.
Yeah, they drove it on as demo when you wanted to reserve one. If you were shelling out the money you needed to buy a Roadster version 2, you were able to get a test drive of it.
Okay. Yeah, but no, this is the old Lotus one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, look at the pictures.
Yeah, you're right.
But anyways, it was a big marketing stunt.
Yeah.
And then people are kind of mad that they should have like sent actual test, like use that payload thing to send test devices or sensors or something that can conduct tests in space and send it back to us to get like real valuable information instead of this big Tesla marketing stunt. But I guess that's just how it works. But you have to think also that like people brought golf clubs on the moon and all sorts of stuff on the moon. So instead of using that valuable time to take samples of dirt, they were playing golf. So it's not something new.
Yeah, and also this is not a science expedition. It's a marketing stunt for a commercial company, so they can do whatever the they want. So
yeah, and it's a private company too. It's not like taxpayers' money. So
exactly,
and it really worked because it like everybody's talking about the Tesla in space, Tesla in space, Tesla in space.
Yeah, but not just that. Also, that the 2 rockets basically came back, which was amazing to watch.
Yeah.
So what happens is the rocket trigger like fires up in the sky. There's 3 parts. There's a core, which is the center column, and there's 2 sides rockets. That's why it's called heavy, because it's much more powerful than a single rocket that they were able to throw in the air and come back. This one has basically 3 units, and once everything gets separated and properly, the 2 side
boosters
rockets basically detaches and come back to the ground and just do a very nice coordinated landing on 2 little pads.
It's really, really cool.
Very cool, yeah. And then the second part, which is the core, the middle part, basically goes a bit further and then comes down back into the ocean, where there's a drone ship with a platform, and they were expecting the core to just go down and do a landing on the pad. But that did not go as planned.
It crashed into the water, and they didn't say it on the feed, and they just they like stopped the feed really early. I think they knew, and they didn't want to show it. And then they didn't talk about it on Twitter. I think only Elon Musk said it on a call to whoever, to the board or something after, or shareholders. Or
yeah, all you see is like a camera feed from the drone ship, and then there's some movement and some white and water and whatever, and people are just saying on the feed that it's when this thing basically arrives, it makes so much wind and energy that sometimes the feed gets cut. But what we saw was basically the rocket crashing about 300 feet next to the drone ship and not on the drone ship. And
do we see it?
We don't see it, but we saw the water being propelled, and we also saw, well, we didn't see, but what basically cut the feed was maybe also sharpnels that was basically just exploded from the rocket. So, but yeah, maybe eventually we'll see a crash video, because I know that SpaceX likes to make crash videos of the rockets. Yeah, so that's maybe is to come eventually once they get all the data and they can understand exactly what happens. But yeah, it's not a perfectly successful mission, but they were still able to do a lot in that mission and prove that they are very close to get something ready. Maybe not put humans in there yet, but for like inanimate objects, that would be fine. And still getting 2 rockets back out of 3 is still a lot better than nothing. So,
well, like they see it. There's a video on YouTube that they're trying to debunk the crash. They say you actually see it through like the dust or whatever, and then they go back to the studio and they say, "Oh, we lost a signal. So sorry." And you see in the background that they still have signal on the thing. Like there's a TV screen in the back and the signal's still on. So it's just a live feed that they try to not talk about the crash.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because it's understandable that they didn't want us to focus on the crash and more on what just happened that worked was pretty impressive. So I understand why they cut it, and just want to ride the wave of the good, positive feedback from the 2 rockets that are landing coordinately. So that was great. But yeah, it's not perfect, but still, I'm pretty happy that there's a lot of eyes on those events. There were millions of people watching the feed, so that was pretty impressive. And yeah, it's I'm all in for this, and eventually we might get back into like traveling across planets and moons and everything if ever we have stuff that can actually go into space and back and not be only single use, because that's billions of dollars every time. And if we can cut this down to millions of dollars, it would make a lot more sense. And it would even be like able to see like the Pepsi rocket and have advertisers go on this and be able to pay to get their brands out there. So it's going to be pretty impressive. All right, so that's it for episode 79. You can find the show notes at rgba.fm/79. You can find us on Twitter at _RGBAfm. And I am on Twitter at Valia, VALLIERES.
And I'm Tyler Menard, TYLERMENARD.
Have a nice week.
Have a nice week.